are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for we are back here on the GSMC.
Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Gruenfelder, and it's great to have everybody here on this Monday. We have a lot to talk about on the show today here on the 4th of December. But before I get into that, I just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link. That is streamelements.com/GSMCsportsnetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you, the viewer. And once again, the link is streamelements.com/GSMCsportsnetwork./tip. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. So with that, let's get right into what we are going to talk about. So we'll recap yesterday's NFC Championship rematch between the 49ers and the Eagles. We'll get into that in just a second. In the second part of the show, we'll talk about the big college football games from this weekend. We'll recap those, and we'll also recap the early window games from Sunday as well. Then in the second part of the show, we'll get into recapping the late window games, including the Sunday night game between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Green Bay Packers. We'll talk about that. And then in the final part of the show, we'll preview tonight's game between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Jacksonville Jaguars. So that's what's on tap for today. So let's get right into the first topic, which is talking about the NFC Championship game rematch between the 49ers and the Eagles. And, going into this game, I said this could be the game of the year, possibly, but it was far from that. The 49ers dominating this game, winning 42-19 over the Eagles. I was kind of picking with my heart on Friday because I was like, you know what, I'm going to take the Niners. I don't feel great about it. And in the early part of this game, I was like, yeah, this doesn't look good because to start off the game, the Eagles went 12 plays, 67 yards, over 5 minutes of time of possession, but they did kick a field goal. Then the Niners punted, and that drive went really fast. 3 plays, -2 yards on that drive. They got no gain. Brock Purdy's first pass was incomplete. Then he got sacked. Then incomplete to McCaffrey, and that was like the end of the first drive. And I'm like, yeah, this does not look good. Then the Eagles' next drive, 12 plays, 53 yards, almost 7 minutes of time of possession. They went down the field, but then they kicked a field goal. So it was only 6-0 after the first quarter. But then from that point on, the 49ers just dominated this game. In the second quarter, the 49ers, they went 11 plays, 85 yards, 7 minutes of time of possession down the field. Brock Purdy connected with Brandon Ayuk for a 2-yard touchdown, put them up 7-6. Eagles punted, and then the Niners again went down the field. Christian McCaffrey, a 2-yard touchdown run to put them up 14-6. And that was the score at the end of the first half. Niners opened up the third quarter with a touchdown drive, 7 plays, 75 yards, 3 minutes, 19 seconds of time of possession. Deebo Samuel scored his first touchdown. It was a rushing touchdown from 12 yards out. So that put them up 21-6. Then the Eagles, on their drive, they went down the field. Jalen Hurts, tush-push, 1-yard touchdown. So that made the game one score again, 21-13. Then the Niners on their next drive, they went 5 plays, 77 yards, and that was Deebo Samuel's second touchdown for 48 yards. That put them up 28-13. Eagles punted. Niners scored again. That was to Juwan Jennings for 18 yards, so that put them up 35-13. Eagles scored another touchdown that was 13 plays, 71 yards, 5 minutes of time of possession. That made it 35-19. Jalen Hurts connecting with Devontae Smith. And then Deebo Samuel scored another touchdown to put them up 42-19. That was the final score. That was from 46 yards out. And that was the game. Brock Purdy went 19-27, 314 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Christian McCaffrey had 17 carries for 93 yards and a touchdown. Deebo Samuel had 3 for 22 and a touchdown. He was also their leading receiver. 4 receptions for 116 yards and 2 touchdowns. George Kittle had 4 for 68. Brandon Ayuk had 5 for 46 and a touchdown. Juwan Jennings had 3 for 44 and a touchdown. And Christian McCaffrey had 3 for 40. And then for the Eagles, Jalen Hurts left the game briefly. Marcus Mariota had to come in. He went 2 for 3 for 16 yards. Jalen Hurts went 26 of 45 for 298 yards, 1 touchdown, no picks. He had 20. The Eagles only ran the ball for 46 yards. Jalen Hurts was their leading rusher with only 20 yards. He had the rushing touchdown, of course, down at the goal line. A.J. Brown was their leading receiver, 8 receptions for 114 yards. Devontae Smith had 9 for 96 and a touchdown. But yeah, Niners dominated this game. And listen, I didn't feel great about it early on. I thought the Eagles were going to win this game, but again, I took the Niners anyways. And the Niners dominated this game. They looked like the much better team. They had their quarterback the whole game. Brock Purdy played really well. Deebo Samuel, again, like three touchdowns in the game. And, I mean, you see what the difference is now because the Niners, when they went on that losing streak, that was when Deebo was out. And now Deebo's back in, and they look like the 49ers team from the beginning of the season. After that game last night, the 49ers are the best team in the NFL once again. Like I said, they looked like the much better team. I do worry about the back end because early on in the game, like I said, I mean, the Eagles, they went right down the field twice, but, the 49ers held up. They only kicked 2 field goals, but they looked really good last night. And this team is going to be a tough team to beat, and they might be the team to beat. I think they are the best team in the NFL after yesterday. I mean, they just completely dominated the Eagles. And, a lot of people have been talking about how the Eagles have not played their best brand of football yet. They've had these comeback wins these last couple of weeks, but, at times they haven't looked great. They've turned the ball over. And the Niners came in, and, Deebo Samuel did a lot of trash talking going into this game, and he backed it up. 3 touchdowns. Had a great game. Like I said, Brock Purdy played well. Christian McCaffrey did his thing, of course. I don't know what else to say. I mean, the Eagles still have home field advantage at the moment, but now they play Dallas next week, and that's going to be a tough game in Dallas. Dallas is really good at home. And, the Eagles, they almost lost to Dallas when they played in Philadelphia, and Dallas is going to want to win this game. So, the Eagles could find themselves losing 2 games in a row. It definitely is in the realm of possibility. But, yeah, I mean, the Niners, they look like the team to beat right now. They're clicking on all cylinders again. They had that rough stretch, but it seems like they're way past that now. And let's see if they could catch up to the Eagles now. Because they're going to have a top 2 seed, of course. I don't know. I mean, could they lose another game this year? I don't think so. Actually, they do play the Ravens on Christmas, so that is possible. They're home against Seattle, which I think they'll win. At the Cardinals, I think they should win. Then they play the Ravens on Christmas. So that's probably the toughest game they have left on their schedule. Then they're at the Commanders, and then they're home against the Rams. So, they got all their divisional opponents left on the schedule. They got the Commanders, who are, they're terrible. We'll talk about them, when, we go through the rest of the games. But, not that long, but, their defense is really bad now. So yeah, I mean the Ravens game, Week 16 on Christmas, is really the only game that I could say, hey, they could lose that game. Other than that, I don't see them losing any of their remaining games. The Ravens game is really the only one. But again, anything is possible. But yeah, I was really impressed with what they were able to do. And that just goes to show you, if Brock Purdy plays that full game in the NFC Championship, I mean, it's a different game. I mean, do the Eagles still win? Probably. But, we'll never know. But you see now when the 49ers have good quarterback play, they could beat anybody. And, they showed that yesterday that, Brock Purdy made the difference. And like I said, Deebo Samuel, when he missed, those couple of games earlier in the season, the Niners struggled. And having him back, they're back to clicking again. And I hope this team does get it done this year because I think a lot of those players on that roster deserve it. So it'd be nice to see that happen. I hope they go all the way this year. But it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. Because they might have to go back to Philadelphia again. Who knows? We'll see. Again, we'll see what happens with the game next Sunday night between Dallas and Philly, which should be a good game. I mean, I thought this game was going to be good, but that was not the case. I mean, they absolutely smoked the Eagles. It was close in the beginning, but Niners just pulled away. After it was 6-0, the Niners they flipped the switch and they dominated. And for the Eagles, we'll see what happens, next week against Dallas. It doesn't get any easier. They're very fortunate that they won the previous two games, because who knows? I mean, Dallas could be in first place right now, and then that could happen next week. If Dallas wins, so, or they'll at least be tied, because because Dallas only has one loss. The Eagles don't have any. Well, in the division, yeah, the Eagles didn't lose to any divisional games because they beat Washington. They haven't played the Giants yet. They beat Dallas. Dallas has beaten the Commanders. They beat the Giants twice. The Eagles are the only divisional loss they have. So, if Dallas can get that game, then they'd be tied. I don't know how the other tiebreakers work with that. The conference record, I don't know. We'll have to see. But, they both got smoked by the 49ers. We know that. But after that game, because I kept saying, because I've been saying for weeks that I still looked at the Eagles as the best team. But, first it was the Niners, and the Niners were struggling. Then I'm like, all right, well, now it looks like it's the Eagles. And I got to see, like, and the Niners beat the Eagles now with them at full strength. And they not only did that, they crushed them. So the Niners now, I think, are back to being the best team in football. But, let me know what you guys think. Are the Niners back to being the class of the NFL, or do we still look at the Eagles as? The Eagles are still a very good team. They're still like a top 3 team in the NFL. If they're not number 1, they're number 2 in the NFC. The record-wise, they're still the top, but after yesterday, to me, the Niners are the best team. So, but we'll see how the rest of the season plays out. But the Niners, like I said, they did some trash talking. Deebo Samuel did some trash talking, backed it up. Niners fans talking about, hey, if we had a quarterback in the championship game, we could have won that game. And, yeah, they backed it up. So, so that's basically it with this segment. So with that, we're going to take our first break of the show. And then when we come back, we will talk about the college football games from this weekend, some of the big matchups there. And then we'll recap the early window games from Sunday as well. So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we're going to take a look at the college football matchups from this weekend, games from this weekend. We'll recap them as well as the early window games from Sunday as well. So we'll go back to Friday. Obviously, there were two games. The big game was Washington and Oregon. We also had Liberty and New Mexico State playing. That was a very high-scoring game. Liberty won that game and covered the spread. They ended up winning 49-35. They were actually, I think they were down early in this game. It was back and forth. New Mexico State scored a touchdown to start the game. Then Liberty answered with a touchdown. Then New Mexico State scored again to make it 14-7. Then Liberty tied it. Then they were up 7. Then New Mexico State tied it, and then it was tied at the half. Then Liberty scored a touchdown on their first two possessions in the second half. Then New Mexico State made it a one-score game. Liberty missed a field goal. Then it was tied. Then they went up 42-35, and then they went up. Then New Mexico State threw a pick. Liberty, turned that into points, made it 49-35, and that was the final score in that game. Very, like I said, very high scoring. So yeah, that was the Conference USA championship, and then for the Pac-12 championship, you had, of course, two Heisman candidates going at it, Bo Nix and Michael Penix. Very exciting game as well. Oregon was down 20-3 at one point during this game, so it didn't look good for them. They did get a touchdown at the end of the first half. They went 7 plays, 75 yards. Bo Nix connected with Ferguson for a 2-yard touchdown. So that made it 20-10 at the half. Then Oregon, coming out of the second half, they went on a 15-play, 75-yard drive to score a touchdown. So that made it a 3-point game. Bo Nix again connected with Ferguson for a touchdown. So, yeah, that made it 20-17. Then Michael Penix threw a pick, and then Bo Nix threw a pick. And then Washington turned over on downs. And then Oregon went up 24-20. 3 plays, 62 yards. So, yeah, it was 24-20. So Oregon came back, but then Washington answered with a touchdown of their own. So that made it 27-24. And then Oregon punted. Washington scored another touchdown. And then, Oregon had a chance because then they had a really quick touchdown drive. Bo Nix connected with Holton for 59 yards. They had to review it because they thought he went out of bounds, and he tiptoed down the sideline and scored. Then it ended up being 63 yards because that ended up being the touchdown because they thought he stepped out before the end zone. So, yeah, it was a 63-yard touchdown. But then Washington was able to, get first downs, and the clock ended up – Oregon didn't have any timeouts at that point, and they used all their timeouts. And, yeah, that was it. Washington ends up getting the win. 34-31. Bo Nix went 21-34, 239 yards, 3 touchdowns and a pick. And then for Michael Penix, he went 27-39, 319 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Washington is now in the college football playoff. They're one of the 4 teams in it. So, yeah, that was a tough loss for Oregon. But, so that was the games from Friday. And then you go to Saturday. Texas beat Oklahoma State 49-21. That wasn't really a game at all. Texas really dominated the game. Michigan won 26-0 over Iowa. I don't think really anyone is surprised by that. Florida State won 16-6 over Louisville, and they actually were left out of the college football playoff, which is a big controversy, which is something we'll talk about at some point during the week, because now we have the 4 teams. We got Alabama and Michigan. They'll be playing each other. So, in Georgia, we'll get into Alabama and Georgia here. Alabama winning 27-24, and that knocked Georgia out of the college football playoff. And that was a very good game. It was back and forth. Georgia scored first to put themselves up 7-0. Alabama kicked a field goal to make it 7-3. Then they were ahead 10-7. They were up 17-7 going into the half. Then Georgia kicked a field goal in the third quarter. Alabama kicked a field goal, make it 20-10. Then Georgia scored a touchdown to make it 20-17. Then Alabama answered with a big touchdown drive to put them up 10, 27-17. And then Georgia scored a touchdown to make them. They were able to run out the clock and win, and now they're in. They're in. So that was a tough loss for Georgia, especially because they're the defending champs. And now they don't really get a chance at the national championship. But yeah, Alabama gets in. So so the matchups, and they're obviously they'll be coming up at some point. So you have Alabama in. You have Washington. You have Michigan, of course. But yeah, I mean, Florida State getting left off as well. It's that was definitely tough. Again, something that we will touch upon at some point. But yeah, that was definitely tough. And even the head coach said, like, what's the point of even playing, the games, if you're just not gonna let us in. So, yeah, and then Texas, that was the other team that's in as well. Especially because they beat Alabama in Alabama. That was one of their big wins this year. But yeah, so those are the four teams for the college football playoff, and like I said, we will go into more detail with why a lot of people are talking about Florida State getting left off of the getting left out of the college football playoff. So now let's get into the early window games from Sunday. So Chargers and Patriots. Chargers winning 6-0. Not really much to say about the game. It really just was. It was terrible. Because I had Red Zone on the whole time. Because the only game I was able to watch was the Jets-Falcons game, and I'm like, I'm just gonna watch Red Zone, and I was better off doing that. But yeah, nothing really much to say about this. I mean, Bailey Zappi started for the Patriots. Patriots are now 2-10. I mean, it's just what a mess. I mean, you never would have thought you would have to say that the Patriots are 2-10 with Bill Belichick as their head coach, but that's the case. So then we go to the Lions and the Saints. Lions winning 33-28. They were up 21-0 after the first quarter, and the Saints, they came back, they battled, but the Lions were able to pull out the win. Jared Goff was decent, 16-25, 213 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. The Lions ran the ball for 142 yards. Sam Laporta was their leading receiver. He had 140 yards in this game. Amon-Ra St. Brown had 49 yards receiving. So each of them had a touchdown in the game. And then Derek Carr actually got hurt in the game, so Jameis had to come in. Taysom Hill was their leading rusher. He had 49 yards and a touchdown. Alvin Kamara had a good game. He had 2 touchdowns. He had 51 yards on the ground. Chris Olave had a good game, 5 receptions for 119 yards. But the Saints dropped to 5-7. Lions improved to 9-3. They get themselves back on track. Falcons and the Jets, another game that just I had to put on Red Zone. I'm like, I'm not watching it because it was the only game. There was no game on CBS, so we had to watch that. Well, I didn't watch it. Like I said, put on Red Zone. Trevor Siemian played in the game for the Jets. Tim Boyle, started the game, 148 yards, no touchdowns, and a pick. I mean, Desmond Ridder, the Falcons, went 12 for 27, 121 yards, 1 touchdown. no interceptions. The Jets, they turned the ball over a lot in this game. Well, not a lot, but, they had 3 turnovers, if you want to call that a lot. Trevor Siemian lost a fumble, Dalvin Cook fumbled, and Tim Boyle threw a pick. But yeah, Jets dropped to 4-8. Falcons are 6-6, and they lead the NFC South. So right now it looks like they might win it. They do play the Bucs next week. If the Bucs win, then that makes it a different conversation. But right now the Falcons look like they are gonna win the division. But I don't trust any of these teams. So then the Steelers and the Cardinals. So there was 2 weather delays in this game, and the Cardinals ended up getting the win 24-10. Kenny Pickett left the game with an ankle injury, and it looks like he's going to be out for a couple of weeks. So Mitchell Trubisky is going to be the starter. And, it was not a good game for the Steelers. Kyler Murray, he was okay. Didn't really throw for a ton of yards in the game. He went 13 to 23, 145 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. James Conner, his homecoming to Pittsburgh, 25 carries, 105 yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns in the game. He was great. Trey McBride, their young tight end, he's becoming a stud. 8 receptions for 89 yards and a touchdown. And Cardinals get the win, improved to 3-10. Steelers dropped to 7-5. So we'll run through these games quickly. We got a couple minutes left here in the segment. The Colts and the Titans. This game went to overtime. Colts improving to 7-5 on the season. 31-28 was the final score. Like I said, this game went to overtime. Gardner Minshew went 26 of 42, 312 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. That was a big win for the Colts because I thought they were going to lose at one point during the game. The Titans actually went ahead in the game in overtime. They kicked a field goal, but the Colts went down the field and scored the touchdown. That was to Michael Pittman. To end the game. So that was a big win for the Colts. They improved to 7-5. I mean, credit to them. I mean, because not a lot of people really expected them to, do anything this year. And like I keep saying, this team is going to be good next year. So, then we get to the Broncos and the Texans. This was a good game. Texans win 22-17 though, snapping the Broncos' winning streak. Russell Wilson had 3 picks in this game. I will say though, not all of them really were his fault. Like the last one, he was just throwing it to make a play because there wasn't a lot of time left. I mean, he was good. I mean, you're trying to win the game. And the first one was tipped. The second one, he underthrew that ball to Sutton. He went 15 to 26, 186 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 picks. Broncos ran the ball for 118 yards in total. Cortland Sutton had 2 receptions for 77 yards and a touchdown. That touchdown throw by Russell Wilson to Sutton, that was a great play. So then for the Texans, C.J. Stroud actually left the game briefly, but came back in. He went 16 to 27, 274 yards, a touchdown, no interceptions. And Nico Collins was their leading receiver, 191 yards receiving and a touchdown. Their rookie wide receiver Tank Dell is going to be out for the season. It was the rushing touchdown that led to him getting carted off. So yeah, he's out for the year. And that was a good connection between those two, and it's unfortunate that had to happen. But the Texans, they still get the win. Improved to 7-5. Broncos dropped to 6-6. So then the Dolphins and the Commanders, last game I'll talk about here. Dolphins winning 45-15. This was just never really a game. Dolphins dominated from start to finish. Tyreek Hill, 157 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns. Tua had a good game, 18 to 24, 280 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Devon Achane had a good game. Raheem Mostert had a good game. So yeah, the Dolphins improved to 9-3, and the Commanders dropped to 4-9. So that is all the games from the early window. So we'll take our second break of the show, and then when we come back, we'll talk about the late window games as well. Before we do that, I just want to remind you guys to tip or donate, get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link. That is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you, the viewer. Once again, the link is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. So when we come back, we will talk about the late window games from yesterday. So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. I was noticing my camera was kind of acting up before break, so I'm going to try to fix it here. So I apologize for that. All right, yeah, we're good now, I think. So we're back here on the GSMC Football Podcast, and for the third part of the show, we are now going to recap the late window games from Sunday. And that'll be the third part of the show here. So, obviously, we talked about the Niners and the Eagles game already. So, we'll get into the other games. So, the first game we'll get into is the Panthers and the Buccaneers. So, the Panthers obviously, fired their head coach, Frank Reich. So, usually when that happens, I shouldn't say usually, but a lot of times when that happens, the team ends up playing better. The Panthers still didn't play great, but they definitely kept it close in this game. The Bucs did get a win. They finally got back to their, I shouldn't say their winning ways, but they got back on the right track, picking up a win, 21-18. Bryce Young was still not great in this game, 15 of 31, 178 yards, no touchdowns, and a pick. Chuba Hubbard had a good game, 25 carries, 104 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Jonathan Mingo was their leading receiver. He had 6 receptions for 69 yards in this game. But yeah, the Panthers just really, couldn't get anything going here. The Bucs, they weren't great offensively either. Baker Mayfield went 14 of 29, 202 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. Rashad White had a good game, 20 carries for 84 yards and a touchdown. Chris Godwin had a 19-yard touchdown run. Mike Evans, great game for him. He's had a great season. 7 receptions for 162 yards and a touchdown. He had that big 75-yard touchdown that had to get reviewed, but they ultimately ruled that he, the ball crossed the pylon as he was going out of bounds. So, he's had a great year, and now he has over 1,000 yards once again. One of the more consistent wide receivers in the NFL. But yeah, this game was boring. It was 7-3 going into the half. The Panthers actually had the lead at one point. They were up 10-7, but then the Bucs answered. That actually was the Mike Evans touchdown was the only play of that drive. I honestly didn't know that. But yeah, they reviewed it, and yeah, it ended up being a 75-yard touchdown. Then both teams traded punts, and then the Bucs scored another touchdown to put them up 21-10. And I was kind of hoping that would end up being the final score, but the Panthers ended up backdoor covering, unfortunately, in my spread pool. Because once again, I ended up with my typical 7, and if the Jags win and cover tonight, then that is going to be, I think, the 5th week in a row that I'm going to end up with 8 in the spread pool. So, but yeah, the Bucs pick up the win, and they got a big game against the Falcons next week. Right now they're 5-7. They got the Falcons, then they got Green Bay, Jacksonville, the Saints, the Panthers. So, the way Green Bay's been playing, we'll talk about them in a little bit, but, they got them, they got Jacksonville, they already lost to the Falcons. They got tough games on their schedule. So, if they are going to want to, win the division, they're going to need to win some of these tough games. So, but the offense hasn't been playing great lately. Baker Mayfield's turning the ball over. Mike Evans has been on a tear, though. But that can only do so much, So the Panthers, they dropped to 1-11. So the Bears, they still got the number 1 overall pick, and it's kind of funny because they were. I saw something that said like the Panthers still have a chance at winning the division. Obviously, a lot of things would have to go right for them for that to happen, but yeah, now they're officially eliminated from playoff contention. So yeah, it's just funny how I saw something that said that, and they lose on Sunday, and then it's like, yep, that's it. They have no chance now. They're completely eliminated. So now let's get into the next game here. Rams and the Browns. So Joe Flacco ended up getting the start for the Browns in this game. And honestly, he didn't play terrible. He went 23 of 44, 254 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Elijah Moore was their leading receiver in the game. Browns kept it close for a while. It was 20-19 at one point, but then the Rams kind of pulled away at the end. The final score ended up being 36-19, but the game was pretty close the whole time. The Rams, like I said, pulled away at the end. Matthew Stafford had a good game, 22 of 37, 279 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Kyron Williams had a good game. He had a late touchdown run, 21 carries, 88 yards. Puka Nacua was their leading receiver, 4 receptions for 105 yards and a touchdown. Demarcus Robinson had a touchdown in this game. The Chiefs could use him. 4 receptions for 55 yards and a touchdown. Cooper Kupp, 6 receptions for 39 yards and a touchdown. And yeah, that ended up being the final score. The Rams got a safety in this game. That was towards the end. But yeah, the Rams get to 6-6. Browns drop to 7-5. But yeah, I mean, Flacco, I thought didn't play, terrible. We were kind of flipping back and forth between the Niners game and Red Zone, so I didn't really get to watch the entire game. But I mean, for a guy that just got off his couch, to play, I mean, I don't think he played, terrible. But yeah, the Browns, now they've lost 2 straight. Play Jacksonville next week. We'll see, but it's kind of getting tough for the Browns to overcome a lot of the the injuries they've been dealing with. This team could still make the playoffs, but now you got to bring in Joe Flacco to play quarterback. It's it's tough. It's tough. What they've had to deal with now recently, but we'll see. I mean, they're still in a playoff spot right now, but that can change. That could definitely change because we'll get into it during the week, but there's teams that are right there that could easily pass them. And then for the final game, to recap, it's the Kansas City Chiefs and the Packers. So I did take the Packers in this game in the spread pool, 6.5-point underdogs. And the Packers ended up winning outright. Jordan Love, from start to finish, was great last night. 25 of 36, 267 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. A.J. Dillon was their leading rusher at 73 yards rushing. Romeo Doubs was their leading receiver, 72 yards receiving. Christian Watson, who actually had left the game with a hamstring injury, had 2 touchdowns in the game as well. The Packers offense played really well. Both teams scored on their first 2 drives, but the only difference was the Packers scored touchdowns. The Chiefs kicked field goals. Patrick Mahomes with 21 of 33, 210 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Isaiah Pacheco had a great game, 18 carries for 110 yards and a touchdown, but he did get ejected for throwing a punch at, I believe it was Keyshawn Nixon that he threw the punch at. So he got ejected. Travis Kelce had 4 receptions for 81 yards. Rashid Rice had 8 receptions for 64 yards. Valdez-Scantling making his return to Green Bay, 2 receptions for 25 yards. Noah Gray had 1 reception, and that was the 2-yard touchdown that Mahomes threw to him. But yeah, I mean, the Packers get to 6-6, and now they have the 7th seed in the NFC playoffs. But yeah, I mean, the first drive of the game, they went 13 plays, 75 yards, almost 8 minutes of time of possession down the field, and Jordan Love connected with Sims, one of their tight ends, because they have no Musgrave. He might be out for the year, I think, or he's at least going to miss some time. He's on IR. And then you have Tucker Kraft, who scored a touchdown last week. against the Lions. But you also have another tight end who ended up scoring there, so that made it 7-0. Then the Chiefs went down the field. Butker kicked a 34-yard field goal. Then the Packers in the second quarter. Yeah, so both teams only one drive in the first quarter. Packers went down the field, 8 plays, 75 yards. Jordan Love connected with Christian Watson for his first touchdown to make it 14-3. Then the Chiefs kicked a field goal to make it 14-6, and that was the score at the half. Then the Chiefs, to open up the second half, went 9 plays, 75 yards, and Isaiah Pacheco scored a 1-yard touchdown to make it 14-12. They didn't get the 2-point conversion. Then the Packers, 7 plays, 67 yards. They went down the field to make it 21-12. And Jordan Love, on 4th and 1, right? On 4th and 1, they went for it, and Jordan Love just heaved up a pass, and it looked like it was going to get intercepted. It looked like it had no chance of doing anything. And Romeo Doubs made the catch. That was a 33-yard reception, and then that set up Jordan Love connecting with Christian Watson from 12 yards out to make it 21-12. And then the Chiefs went 11 plays, 66 yards. They went down the field, and Mahomes connected with Noah Gray for a 2-yard touchdown, and that made it. And then Butker kicked the extra point to make it 21-19. Both teams punted to open up the fourth quarter. Packers tacked on a field goal. Mahomes threw a pick. I thought I didn't think it was going to be a pick. I honestly thought nobody was going to catch it. And then Keyshawn Nixon made a great play on the ball to intercept it. Packers turned that into points to make it 27-19. And then the Chiefs could not score a touchdown at the end of the game. But there were some questionable calls in the game. There was where Mahomes got hit out of bounds. Well, he was still inbounds. He got hit, but they called it a 15-yard penalty. So that helped the Chiefs out. Also, Isaiah Pacheco, he got disqualified when he threw the punch. But yeah, so they didn't call the play on Valdez-Scantling because it looked like Valentine, he, jumped too early, and they didn't call it. And then, and then the Chiefs, they got down there, but, Mahomes, heaved it up, and, nobody caught it. And that ended up being the game. 27-19. So the Packers improved to 6-6, and the Chiefs dropped to 8-4. But yeah, once again, the officiating was questionable in the game. So yeah, I mean, listen, that's why people question the integrity of the game, because you call flags on certain plays, and then there's other plays you don't. Especially when the play's right in front of you, everyone's talking about the horse, from last week, the horse collar tackle on Josh Allen. They didn't call that, and the official's standing right there. It's just, the officiating is bad. It's got to be more consistent, of course, too, but it's not going to happen. And Roger Goodell keeps saying how the officiating's great. There's no issues, but there are issues. So, but the Packers, now they're the 7th seed. And listen, I said earlier in the year, I thought this team was going to be a wild card team, and then it didn't look like that was going to be the case at all, because they had that rough stretch. I mean, losing to the Broncos, the Raiders. I mean, Jordan Love looked terrible. People are saying he's not the guy. But recently, he looks like the guy. He looks a lot more comfortable. He is in sync with his receivers. And this is a young team. You got so many guys that are, first-year or second-year players. I mean, all the tight ends they have, the receivers, Wicks and, Watson and Dobbs are second-year guys. Jaden Reed, who's become a good receiver for them. Really the veterans are the running backs, A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones when he comes back. I mean, you get Aaron Jones back, and, I think, well, I don't want to say, if Aaron Jones could play, he's going to play. But, if the Packers can continue to, win games, maybe, you tell Aaron Jones, listen, rest up, heal up, get yourself, back to, being fully healthy. And, if they make the playoffs, that's when you bring him back. But we still got a long way to go. I don't want to, say the Packers would definitely make the playoffs because, anything can happen. But right now, they look better than the Vikings. They already beat the Rams. They look better than Seattle. Though Seattle just put up 35 points on Dallas this week. I don't know. We'll see. But that was a big win for them. especially. So now with that, we're going to take our final break of the show. And then when we come back, we're going to preview the final game of Week 13, and that is between the Bengals and the Jaguars. So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we're going to now preview tonight's game between the Bengals and the Jaguars. Before that, my friend just sent something in the chat, in our sports chat. It's a tweet that says, legislators in Florida are exploring legislation to protest Florida State's exclusion from the college football playoff. Yeah, I mean, listen, it's tough that they got left out, but like, you kind of understand the rationale. A lot of people talked about the conference they play in. Obviously, Jordan Travis getting hurt, their quarterback, as well. I mean, again, they only won 16-6 over Louisville. So, but you understand both sides. But that's why they're going to expand the playoffs. So this doesn't happen. But, yeah, it's just, it's unfortunate that happened. But, I just wanted to share that with you guys. But let's get into now this final game here on the Week 13 slate. So obviously it's not as great as it was going to be because Joe Burrow will not be playing in this game, unfortunately. The line was at 8.5. Now it jumped up to 10. T. Higgins actually is going to play in this game. So that's big for the Bengals, getting him back. To kind of compare the two teams, the league rankings. So the Jaguars are 12th in passing yards per game. The Bengals are 18th in rushing yards per game. The Jags are 19th. Bengals are 32nd. And now with Burrow being out, I mean, that's only going to affect the running game even more because Mixon did not have a good game against the Steelers last week. Jags are 10th in points per game. Bengals are 23rd. And then on the defensive side of the ball, both teams struggled against the pass this year. Bengals are 27th. Jags are 28th. Against the run, the Jags are 3rd. Bengals are 31st. And then points allowed, the Jags are 12th. And the Bengals are 21st. Yeah, Bengals defense has been kind of struggling this year. So, yeah, I mean, you got Jake Browning at quarterback. I mean, listen, can the Bengals, maybe keep it close? I mean, yeah, you're getting T. Higgins back, which is big. The Jags, they're one of the best teams in the AFC. But, on offense, they've been inconsistent at times. And actually, looking at the standings now, it's kind of crazy that the Chiefs are now the 4 seed at the moment, which is wild. But, again, it's really close because every team has around the same record. But, yeah, the Jags have been kind of inconsistent on offense at times during the year. For me, though, I think they're going to win this game, of course. Again, Jake Browning at quarterback. Maybe the Bengals keep it close somehow. Because, again, you have Jamar Chase, T. Higgins is back, Tyler Boyd as well. But I don't know. For me, the Jags, I think, should win this game. And they should win easily. But you never know. Because, again, if I win this game, it's going to be, the 5th week in a row that I've won 8 in the spread pool. So, but, again, the Jags got to keep winning, though, because, the Colts and the Texans are right behind them. Now, they have the tiebreakers over those teams, but, still, got to win those games. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that because they split with the Texans, but, yeah, they gotta keep winning. And this division is going to be pretty good for years to come, because you got all these young quarterbacks in it. Really, I mean, again, giving the Colts credit for being 7-5. Because again, I mean, even the Texans too. I mean, you didn't really expect this, but the Jags are going to have their hands full because you thought like they were going to be by far the favorites, and no one was really going to compete with them, and that's not the case. I mean, yeah, they lost to the Texans early on in the season, and they were fortunate to win the game last week. So, for me, that they should win this game pretty easily. But again, it's the NFL. You never know with what's going to happen. I mean, as for the Bengals, like they're just, it's unfortunate because, I mean, we might see a playoffs without Burrow, Herbert, and Josh Allen, which I don't think anybody would have expected going into the year. I mean, Josh Allen could still make it, but yeah, I mean, there's going to be no Burrow. And the Bengals, I mean, it's unfortunate because they looked like one of the best teams in the NFL when he was healthy. It seemed like he got over the calf injury, and it looked like the Bengals were going to be on their way to making another run. And unfortunately, got hurt again. Different injury. Still, it's interesting with how that played out because he wasn't on the injury report, and then he gets hurt. It stinks because Burrow, I love watching Joe Burrow play. I mean, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, but, like him and a lot of other players that got hurt this year, I mean, injuries are part of the game, and they're going to continue. I mean, you see it every week. Every week there's always a big injury. I mean, can the Bengals somehow pull off the upset? I mean, even without Burrow, like the Bengals, like aren't like a horrible team. But like I talked about, I mean, the defense hasn't been, great as good as it has been, with these last two playoff runs that they've had. And Jake Browning, I mean, he's got to get the ball to his playmakers. I mean, again, getting T. Higgins back is big, but I don't think it's still not going to be enough because you're kind of limited at quarterback. But who knows? Who knows? I mean, I still took the Jags in the spread pool, but I don't know if they're gonna, win by, more than 8. I don't know. I mean, I actually did have the Bengals originally, but then I switched it. So we'll see if that probably not going to pay off. Jags will probably like win by like 7. The line did go up to 10 though, so we'll have to see. The over under is 40. Probably take the over. I would take the over in that. I think that should go over, but I mean, who knows? Who knows? Also, I think there's rain in the forecast as well because I was looking at it on CBS as well. So, yeah, we'll see. But for the Bengals, like I said, it's just unfortunate with the luck they've had this year. And for the Jaguars, I mean, got to keep winning because those teams got teams that are right behind you. So you can't afford to slip up. But yeah, I mean, like I said, looking on CBS, I mean, it's crazy that the Chiefs right now are the 4 seed. We'll get into that more throughout the week, especially going over the standings too. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of back and forth all year, well, the rest of the year. Because I mean now the Dolphins actually I think have the 1 seed. So that game against the Ravens is going to be tough. In Baltimore, that's 1:00 game on CBS on New Year's Eve. So, that'll be a fun game. That game should get flexed into prime time, but I don't think it's going to happen. The prime time game actually on Christmas Eve, Broncos, Patriots. Yeah, not good. Not good. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be, down the stretch, I mean, these playoff races are going to be a lot of fun to watch. So, I mean, you just have no idea. I mean, for some of the divisions, you kind of have an idea of what's going to happen, but I mean, for the wild cards, I mean, it's a different team every week, pretty much. So, we'll see how it goes. But hopefully, the season takes its time because I don't want it to end. But it's going to end eventually. We got 1 month left. So just got to enjoy it. So, and, of course, again, holidays are coming up in more holidays coming up in a couple of weeks, within the coming weeks. So that's when the season is winding down. And, and then once the playoffs come around, that'll go fast, and then that's it. And I talk about it every week, but we're getting we are closer to the end than we are to the beginning, unfortunately. That's why you got to cherish every week. And it was nice to actually be home to watch the games yesterday, because I really haven't had to do that. Really couldn't do that all year. So it definitely was nice to just be able to watch them. Like I said, I watched Red Zone like the whole time, because I just could not watch the Jets-Falcons game as the standalone game. I don't know why CBS didn't have it, because in the late window they had at least another game on CBS, and it was Bucks-Panthers. But I'm like, I'm not trying to watch the Jets and the Falcons. You got to put on something else. But you feel for the Jets, because what happened to them should not have happened. But I mean, Aaron Rodgers, rest up, get yourself healthy for next year. Jets build an offensive line for this guy. Trade for Devontae Adams, and then go from there. Because, the offensive line's going to get him hurt again, if they don't fix it. So, but, yeah. After this, we move on to Week 14. So, we're moving along. And before, like I said, before you know it, get to the playoffs. But, again, nothing is solidified yet. So, divisions, who knows who's going to win the NFC South? It's just, we'll see. We'll see. It's going to be a lot of back and forth the rest of the way. But it's nice, because you're just like, you just have no idea like how it's going to shape out, which is good. Because I honestly would rather it be like you have no idea who's going to win, as opposed to, it's going to be this team, because it's always this team. Because the Chiefs don't look like a team that's going to repeat. Doesn't look like that's going to happen. And Mahomes might have to play a road playoff game, it looks like. So, but it's hard to be, at the top every single year. The Patriots, all those years, they did it. But it's tough. The Chiefs, listen, they could still turn it on. You can't count them out until they're officially out. That's how I look at it. So, but they got their issues. They definitely have their issues. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it for the show today. Let me know what you got. I got way off topic with the segment here, but let me know what you guys think about what's going to happen in the game tonight. Any other football things. Obviously, even with college football too, Florida State being left out of the college football playoff. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about the teams that did get in? Let me know what you guys think about everything that transpired this past week. And so with that is all the time that we have for today. So I thank you guys for watching. We'll be back again 11 a.m. tomorrow, so make sure to tune in. And until then, I'm Kenneth Gruenfelder signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day. Enjoy the game tonight if you do watch it, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.